Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve, Gauravani Pracharine, Vishesha Shunyavadi Parshatadeshana. Hare Krishna. So we continue to discuss from the first chapter. First chapter lays the foundation, the introduction to the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. It sets the scene, and the scene is set on the battleground of Kurukshetra. But both the armies are arrayed in combat positions, and Arjuna expressing his desire, ordering Krishna. The verses that we discussed last, the verses which reflect that how much Krishna is affectionate, how he is favorably disposed towards his devotee, that he becomes the order carrier. We cannot make the Supreme Lord become our order supplier. But here he is, who is on the command of his devotee Arjuna. And as Arjuna desires and demands, Krishna very willingly, very lovingly, he agrees to abide by the order of Arjuna, is to place his chariot in the midst of the two armies. But by placing the chariot in the midst of the two armies, Arjuna was tricked by Krishna. Krishna did not exactly position the chariot in the midst of the armies. He took it in a position that prominently Arjuna could see his very beloved grandfather Bhishma and the very revered spiritual teacher Drona. Bhishma Drona Pramukata, and Krishna tells Arjuna that Vash etan samvetan kurunti. In the presence of Bhishma Drona and of the chieftains of the world, the Lord said, just behold, Partha, all the Kurus assembled here. Krishna instigated in Arjuna's heart the compassion, the kindness, or in a sense, bewilderment, so that he would become confused. And from today, we will see that what is the result of this positioning of the chariot, what Arjuna sees. That was 26th verse. I think we discussed the 26th verse. We were on the 26th verse last time. Yeah. We have done this verse. I won't discuss 25. Because we have to continue. 26th verse, Sanjay narrates what all was Arjuna able to see. He was able to see the 5 generations assembled together. What he could see within the midst of the armies, his father, his grandfather. Father and grandfather is 2 generations ahead. Teachers, material uncles, brothers, grandsons, friends, and also in father-in-law and well-wishers. So he could see his grandfather Bhishma, not just grandfather, great-grandfather Bhishma, that is the 4th generation. And he could also see the sons, that is the 5th generation. So when he saw all this, when he saw all these relatives and friends, his well-wishers assembled, so very much he was overwhelmed with compassion. And what is this compassion driven by? It is driven by attachment. So we will see the 27th verse today, and we will continue. We will go to the next section. That section which will create confusion in Arjuna's heart. That is Arjuna Vishadi. So what did Arjuna see? That is the 27th 26th verse. And what is the effect of Arjuna's vision or Arjuna's impact of seeing the assembled? In it is 27th verse says, Tan samikshasya kaunteya sarvam bandhunavasthitam kripaya paryavishto vishidan nidan abravet. Tan samikshasya. Samiksha, you understand? Samiksha is an assessment. So Arjuna had this desire of making an assessment. Let me see all those who have assembled here with a desire to fight. That was the 23rd verse. And what is the assessment now? Tan Samiksha se Kaunteya. Kaunteya is Arjuna. So he has made an assessment to all who have come. And who are these who have assembled? Sarvan Bandhu Navasthita. Bandhu means, it is plural, all the brothers or all those who are relatives. Avasthita means situated. So what is the Samiksha? Samiksha is that they are all my blood. They are all my blood group. Not just the blood group, they are all my family. They are all my blood relatives. So what is the impact in Arjuna's heart? Kripaya paryavishto. Kripaya means kripa is compassion. And he is overwhelmed with the compassion. And Vishidam, and he is very much lamenting. He is very much disturbed. He is overwhelmed with compassion. And what he speaks, that is the next word. This is the next section actually. So the first section of the first chapter is from verse number 1 till verse number 27. And what we saw, there were 4 sections in the first section. There are 4 subsections. Anyone who remembers the, can we have the full screen? Can you stop the share? Who remembers the first 4 sections of the first section? First 4 subsections rather of the first section. Dinesh ji, my focus is on you now today.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
We have found you after a long gap.
Prabhuji, keep focused. I'll be delivered, Prabhuji.
No. I can only keep focus if you come in vision.
I'll do that.
Within the range of vision. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, first section was doubts of Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana. Doubts of,
No. Again.
Doubts of Dhritarashtra and diplomacy of Duryodhana.
Now you have corrected. First you said doubts of Duryodhana.
Second was ominous sign of victory. This victory.
No. You have skipped one large section.
Diplomacy, Prabhuji. Diplomacy of Duryodhana.
Yeah. From which verse till which verse?
First to 12 are first, and 13 to 20 are this diplomacy of Duryodhana.
Again? Not very.
First to 12.
Verse?
Verse number 1 to 12, Prabhuji.
So how can one be there? One is for Dhritarashtra's doubt.
Doubt. So first to 12 was the doubts of Dhritarashtra, Prabhuji.
No. Again you are correct. Anyone else who can give a clearer representation? Yes, Pradeep Prabhu. Unmute and speak. Are you able to hear Pradeep Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Clearly, I don't know, Prabhuji.
Difficult in getting memory recall. Huh? Out of sight, out of mind. Pranab Prabhu?
I can't clearly tell, Prabhuji.
There, first verse is the only verse which is spoken by Dhritarashtra. That is the doubt. Severe doubt in the heart, rather the fear in the heart of Dhritarashtra. Because he is fearful of the place, Dharmashetra, Kurukshetra. And then we see the diplomacy of Duryodhana. That is from verse number 2 till verse number 11. And then from verse number 12, what we see is the signs of victory till verse number 20. And from verse number 21 till 27 is Krishna's favorably inclined to his devotee, his very prominent quality of being a lover of his devotees, Vatsala. That how he agrees to abide by the order of Arjuna. And today we will see that Arjuna's lamentation, which is Arjuna's Vishadyu. This is the second section. So second section begins with the 28th verse. So Arjuna, after being induced by Krishna to see Pashetam Samavetam Kuruniti, and after seeing what he realizes, that on the opposing side are his all blood relatives, his brothers, his gurus, everyone whom he loves and cares for. So what is the impact? That is the verse number 28. This is the next section, the second main section. Drishtva imam swajanam Krishna yuyutsam samupastitam sidanti mam gatrani mukham cha parishusyati. So this is Arjuna speaking. If you see the last verse, it says Vishidantam idam abravit. So Sanjay was speaking that verse, and Sanjay was narrating to Dhritarashtra in the palace that after observing the army on the battlefield, opposing side, that is the Kaurava side, Arjuna becomes overwhelmed with compassion, and he spoke thus. And what he speaks to Krishna, his chariot driver. He says, Dishtva imam swajanam Krishna. So Dishtva means to be able to see. So what Arjuna sees? He says all his relatives. Swajanam. And not just he sees his relative, he also sees the relative in a fighting spirit. It is Yuyutsam. And Sidanti Mam Gatrani. What is the impact in his heart? That he is, his limbs of his body are quivering. Sidanti is quivering. Quivering means kampan. If someone comes to see some very horrific scene or some very unexpected, unpleasant scene, what happens? Shiver goes down his spine. You know, shivering. And from shivering is the quivering. Quiver normally is said to be the item which holds the arrows. But his entire body, limbs of his body are quivering, they are shivering. And mukham cha parishushati, and his mouth is drying up. Let us see the purport. And in what situation such a circumstance arise? Prabhupada says in the purport that any man who has genuine devotion to the Lord has all the good qualities which are found in godly persons or in demigods. Whereas the non-devotees, however advanced he may be in material qualification, by education and culture lacks in godly qualities. What are the godly qualities? One of the godly qualities is compassion. Compassion means feeling the pain and sufferings of others. As we see, the age revolves and man is becoming more like a machine. He has no impact. There is no question of compassion, there is cruelty. So the godly quality is that is of compassion. So Prabhupada is saying that unless and until one is a devotee of the Lord, he cannot possess any good quality. A good quality means the godly qualities, divine qualities. So Arjuna, after seeing his kinsmen, friends, and relatives on the battlefield, was at once overwhelmed by compassion for those on whom he has so decided to fight amongst themselves. So Arjuna was feeling compassion towards his enemies who were on the other side, on the opposing side, who were determined to kill him. But what is the godly quality? That he is the godly person or the saintly person. He actually does not consider his enemy an enemy. Very difficult. Not to consider our enemy someone who is hurting us, who is harming us, who is giving pain to us. But still we have good feelings for him, well-wishing feelings. Is it easy? Very difficult. What is the principle that we follow? Jaise ko taisa. Tit for tat. But here we see in Arjuna's heart, he felt compassion as for them who had decided to fight against themselves. As far as his soldiers were concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning. So Arjuna is not only partial, that is sympathetic towards those who are in his side of the army, but he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposing party. So one may say that he was feeling compassion for his enemies because his enemies were his own. They were his brothers, they were his blood relatives, they were his uncles, they were his grandfathers. But what about soldiers on the opposing side? What relation he had? None on the blood side. But this is the nature, this is the divine nature of a devotee. That is why we see Prahlad Maharaj, we also see Yudhishthira Maharaj, they are called Ajat Shatru. Ajat Shatru. Ajat Shatru means one whose enemy is never born. How could it be that one's enemy is never born? It is only to the extent that one never considers anyone his enemy. That is the heart, that is the situation of the heart. It is so pure, it is so loving that even some may try to kill or some may try to harm, but the saintly person, he does not accept his enemy as his enemy. So Arjuna is showing this compassion that Prabhupada is appreciating, foreseeing their imminent death. And while he was so thinking, the limbs of his body began to quiver and his mouth became dry. He was more or less astonished to see their fighting spirit. Practically the whole community, all blood relatives of Arjuna had come to fight with him. This overwhelmed a kind devotee like Arjuna. Although it is not mentioned here, one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's body limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. Prabhupada's bhava. He gives the inner meaning of the feeling of what the character is representing. Krishna, of course, is in the heart of the devotee. And similarly, the devotee is in the heart of Krishna. And our acharyas like Srila Prabhupada, when they are giving us the scriptures, they are able to access the heart of both Krishna and Arjuna. That is why Prabhupada was very, very curious to see anyone and everyone trying to comment on him. Because who can comment on Bhagavad Gita? One who knows the heart of Krishna and also one who knows the heart of Arjuna. And you have to see this statement. Prabhupada is saying here that not only Arjuna's body limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. So although Sanjay is not saying so, but Srila Prabhupada is able to experience this. Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness. Prabhupada is appreciating the divine godly qualities of Arjuna. You see, the Bhagavad Gita, the scene is so, and the role of Arjuna is so. Arjuna is playing double role. Simultaneously, Arjuna is playing the role of a devotee who is soft-hearted, compassionate, who is reflecting all these godly qualities. He is a pure devotee of the Lord, so he exhibits these qualities. At the same time, Arjuna is also playing the role of a conditioned soul, who is bewildered, who is perplexed, who is not able to make decisions. So when and where, which of the role is being prominent, are very difficult to speak, impossible. But through the Acharya's commentary, we can enter into the heart of Arjuna. Here, Prabhupada is giving us that very, very valuable access through his purpose. So here Prabhupada is saying that such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to his weakness, but to his soft-heartedness. A characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord is said, therefore, very beautiful verse, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarver gunastat samasate sura haro bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena sati bhavato vahi. So it says Yasyasti bhaktir, one who is performing bhakti or devotion to whom? Bhagavati. Bhagavati is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what kind of devotion is he performing? What kind of bhakti is performing? It is akinchana. Akinchana means without motive or without any material motives. That means his motive is only one. Is akinchana. Kinchana means that he is having some material desires. That means his desires are only for the purpose of pleasing the Supreme Lord. That is what devotion means. The desire and the activity to please the Supreme Lord. So such a devotee who is akinchana, who is nishkinchana, who is without material motives, is sarve gunastatra samasate. So such a devotee, he receives all the godly divine qualities. Sarve means all, and gunas means the qualities. And what qualities? Samasate sura. Sura means the demigod. Not only the demigod quality, it means the divine qualities, the transcendental qualities. The qualities which is possessed by the Supreme Lord himself. And on the other hand, harava bhaktasya, one who is not a devotee. Bhakta means who is a devotee, and abhakta means who is a non-devotee. The one who is abhaktasya, kuto mahatguna, from where can he possess the divine qualities? Why? Manorathena, because he is driving on the chariot of the mind. He has been driven by the chariot of his mind. Manorathena. Ratha, you understand, is the chariot. Here in Arjuna's case, who is the chariot driver? Is Krishna. But in a conditioned soul state, who is the chariot driver? His mind. His mind. Manorathena. And Dhavato means he is hovering, or he is running, or he is galloping. But how he is being moved through the uh, illusionary energy. But he with the external energy or material energy. This is what the translation is. That one who has unflinching devotion for the personality of Godhead has all the good qualities of the demigod. Demigod does not mean only the demigod that we understand. Brahma, Shiva, Indra, Chandra. No. It means the divine qualities, the godly qualities. Of course, demigods are the authorized representatives, so they also reflect these qualities. But one who is not a devotee of the Lord, however educated he may be or he may be cultured, has only material qualifications that are of little value. This is because he is hovering on the marital plane and is certain to be attracted by the glaring material energy. What is the glaring material energy? Maya Shakti. So we will discuss, we are discussing the 9th chapter in the most confidential knowledge. So Krishna tells Arjuna that you please do not worry, Arjuna, because you are under the protection of my Devi. The one who is a devotee, who is a kinchana, who has no personal motives, and he has a desire to serve and please Krishna, he cannot remain on the platform of Dhamatobai. He is on the platform of Devi Prakriti. He is on the platform of Devi Prakriti. Last day now, थोड़ी देर में बात करूंगा. So Prabhupada is very much appreciating the divine godly quality of Arjuna, the genuine feelings that are being aroused in the heart of Arjuna after being able to evaluate all those who have assembled here. Samiksha, Tan Samiksha se naam hai. And it is not all. What is Arjuna's situation? Next word even more elaborately describes how much Arjuna is overtaken by this overwhelming feeling of compassion. That is 29th verse. So this verse, this series of verses that we are speaking here, from 28 till practically 30th verse. I will try to complete to 30 verse of course, and maybe one of you more. So this gives one of the first reasons where Arjuna refuses to fight. And what is this first reason? Is Arjuna's compassion. What is this compassion? Based on spiritual understanding, then the compassion will become spiritual. But here we see Arjuna's compassion is being aroused because of his bodily condition, blood condition. So this is the first reason Arjuna gives. So we will see in this section, Arjuna will give 4 reasons why he would not fight and why he would give up fighting and why he considers fighting to be inauspicious. The first reason is his material compassion. Arjuna is giving compassion on the ground of body. It's not on the ground of his spiritual identity. Now what is the situation? What is the psychophysical nature of Arjuna? We see more distinctly being described in this next verse, 29th verse. Vyaputascha sharire me romaharshasta jayate Gandivam samsate hastat yakcheva paritayate. So Arjuna is saying that Vyaputascha sharire, sharir in his body, is Vyaputha. His body is trembling. So you see, the compassion, the overwhelming feeling of compassion has been subdued by the feeling of fear in his heart. That compassion has been converted because the compassion is based on body. very prominent lesson to learn in our life. So what bodily attachments and bodily compassion does, it creates fear. It instills fear in the heart. That is why we see we all become very weak. Someone in the family is sick or he's suffering or he passes away. What is the attachment based on? Attachment is based on body, blood, and what it instills? It instills fear. How it is fear? That Roma Harsha Sajayate. What is Roma Harsha? That Roma means the hairs. And the hairs are standing. Body pores which have hairs. You see on the almost all limbs of our body we have the pores. And from the pores what grows is hairs. So all is hairs on the body. The hairs which are coming from the pores of your body or are standing erect. Have you seen an animal called porcupine? Have you seen? Just imagine. What is the very distinct feature of the porcupine? That every hair on his body is erect. It is erect. Very difficult for any other animal to prey. Porcupine. So Arjuna is seeming to become like a porcupine. That he is saying that my whole body is trembling, my hair is standing on end. Each hair of the body is standing on end. That is how? Because of excessive fear in his heart. And how much is the fear? That he is shivering. And my bow Gandiva is slipping. Gandivam samsate hastar. Samsate means is slipping. He is not able to hold. Why? Because not only his body is shivering, his hand is also shivering. So his hand cannot hold his bow, which is Gandiva. Why? Because he is overwhelmed, not just by compassion. That compassion is converted into excessive fear. And fear is based on attachment. So what it does further, it instigates Arjuna that his body is burning, his skin is burning. Tak chaiva parivahate. Dahate means burning. So his skin is burning. Why? Because of fear. Fear is giving him so much of burning sensation that he is feeling that his skin is burning. The material compassion, which is based on material attachment, it instigates fear in our heart. And what does fear bring? Fear makes us weak. It's a very important subject. We will see how much we can discuss this point. Very prominent learning in our life. Why we are so fearful? Why our mind is always inclined towards negativity? Always contemplating something inauspicious may not happen. This is the principle. This is the foundation of material attachment. Considering ourselves to be body and those related to body to be our own. Aham Mami. The Prabhupada says in the purport that there are two kinds of trembling of the body. Two kinds of trembling of the body and two kinds of standing of the hair on end. What are the two kinds? What are the distinct situations? Such phenomena occur either in great spiritual ecstasy. When one is spiritually very happy or he is ecstatic, then he can experience this. That is the Asht Sattvic Vikar. Vikar means the transformation. One of the spiritual ecstasy or transformation is when the person feels his hair standing and his body is trembling. It happened with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Oh, as soon as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he entered, show me the normal screen. We'll take the purple link. Yeah, the full screen. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he took sannyas, stop the screen share. Please be attentive. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he took sannyas, and after sannyas, he went to Jagannath Puri. And when he entered the Sri Mandira, the first time, when he is to take darshan of Lord Jagannath, such eruptions are exhibited by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His entire body is trembling, shivering. His hairs are standing. He cannot even speak. What he is able to say? He's only able to say Jaga, Jaga, Jaga. And in that spiritual ecstasy, he faints. Prabhupada is speaking about this. Just here, I will read from the book. That there are two kinds of trembling of the body and two kinds of standing of hair on end. Such phenomena occurs either in great spiritual ecstasy. That is what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will experience. Great spiritual ecstasy. One of Srila Prabhupada's disciples was telling me, His Holiness Bhakti Keshav Bharati Swami Maharaj told me when he first read Srila Prabhupada's book, first book he read. He said after reading the book, while he was reading the book, not after, while he was reading the book, he felt such spiritual ecstasy. Tears were continuously flowing from his eyes. Hair was standing on his head. That is out of great spiritual ecstasy. We all, would desire or pray that we experience this spiritual ecstasy. But not easy. But what is the second situation? Or out of great fear under material conditions. But here, Arjuna is exhibiting this not due to his spiritual ecstasy or his trance, but due to his bodily attachment. So Prabhupada is saying that such phenomena occur either in great spiritual ecstasy or out of great fear under material condition. There is no fear in transcendental realization. We have discussed this and we'll continue to discuss this. There are many phobias. Once I did the research that how many fears are there. There are many millions of fears in our heart. There is no fear in transcendental realization. Arjuna's symptom in this situation are out of material fear. And what is the fear? Namely, loss of life. Arjuna is very fearful. Why is feeling compassion? Because his compassion is based on matter, on body. And if he fights, and if he kills, then they will lose their life. This is evident from other symptoms also. He became so impatient that his famous bow Gandiva was slipping from his hands. Gandivam Samsate Hasta. Arjuna, the great warrior, who could string his bow Gandiva and release just the string. And that string that would create such a sound in the ether that the three words would vibrate. And even the demigod would come to know that it is Arjuna who is active with this bow Gandiva. The same Arjuna, see how much weak he has become, how much insecure he has become. That he has lost his ability to even hold his bow Gandiva. He has become so impatient That is, famous bow Gandiva was slipping from his hand. And because his heart was burning within him, why was the heart burning? Because of fear. What was the fear? Due to attachment. And where is the attachment? Of body, me and mind. Aham mamir. He was feeling a burning sensation of the spirit. All these are due to material conception of. We have discussed many times, but it is worth discussing every time. That to the extent we experience fear in our existence, that means we are very much saddled in the material conception of life. We still consider our existence to be based on body. So it brings fear, and fear weakens the personality. It weakens our ability to take right decisions. When the intelligence is weak, what we do? We take wrong choices. And as we decide on the wrong choices, what we do? We suffer. Suffer. So it's a clear connect that how on the bodily conception of life we have attachments, and due to attachments we become fearful, and as the fear is there in the heart, we become not only we are mentally weak, but our intelligence is also impacted. So we cannot take the right decisions. So in this way, we see Arjuna, such a formidable warrior, one of the greatest combatant on planet Earth. How he is becoming weak due to his bodily attachments. Can you close the screen share? So are you getting the concept, the principle? Fundamentally, if we are experiencing any fear, any negativity, there is always fear in our heart. What is that fear reflecting? Our bodily conception of life, our attachment to body and bodily conditions. Many of our participants today, the video is off. This is another attachment. We don't want to reveal ourselves. Why? We are fearful. Fearful of what? Our own image. What others will think of me. Entire life is lost in what others will think of me. We are very image conscious rather than becoming Krishna conscious. Why? Again, fear. Any question? So Arjuna has material compassion. Why Arjuna will refuse to fight to perform his duty because of his attachments. Because his compassion is based on body and bodily conditions. Very important life lesson principle. To the extent we experience fear, to that extent we are in bodily conception. On the spiritual platform, there is no fear. Prabhupada at the age of 70 was fearless. Whether visa available or not, whether any connection available or not, he could travel throughout the world fearless. Why? Because in his heart. Okay, we'll proceed. I don't see anyone, coming up with any question. Everyone is still thinking what to ask. So we'll take the next verse also. So what fear does? Not only it makes one's bodily weak. What is the situation of one's mind? Very graphic presentation of Arjuna's mind map, as we call it. You know, what is a mind map? Map the mind. न च शक्नोषि अवस्थातुं ब्रह्मतीव च मे मनः निमित्तानि च पश्यामि विपरीतानि केशव. So I am now unable to stand here in that. Why? Because the skin is burning, the mouth is drying up, the entire body is trembling. He has no strength even to remain in the position of stand. I'm not unable. I'm now unable to stand here any longer. Brahmativa me mana. Brahma, you understand, is confusion. He is confused. Not only is confused, he is forgetting himself. Of course, we all have forgotten ourselves. Bhuliya tumhara, sansar asi. We have all forgotten ourselves when we have come into this material world. So he's saying, Brahma Tiva me mana. I am forgetting myself and my mind is healing. Nimittani cha pashyami. What he is able to see, or what he is able to. 1 minute. I'll close the window. Hospital. So it says pashyami. Pashyami is able to see or to visualize. What he says is vipritani. I can only see reverses or misfortune. So he says, now I am unable to stand here any longer. Why? Because not only the intelligence has become weak, but fear has entered the mind. And when the fear is in the mind, what it does, it creates havoc. What is the havoc which Arjuna is experiencing on the battlefield? He is saying, I am forgetting myself. So what fear does? One forgets oneself. Of course, by forgetting oneself, he forgets what his duty is. Because his mind is confused. What is feeling? And what he sees, I see only causes of misfortune. What is the cause of misfortune for him? Is this eminent war. This is a cause of misfortune. After so much of effort, Krishna has arranged that the war could begin. And what is Arjuna seeing? He is only able to see the causes of misfortune. And you see, in a very subtle way, what he is doing is instigating Krishna. He is saying, oh Krishna, you are the killer of Kesi demon. You are the killer of demon. But what is his mind saying? That those who are assembled on the other hand, they are not demons. They are my dear ones. They are not demons. They are my dear ones. So you are also known as the killer of demons. Why you are asking me to fight? Let us see the purport of Srila Prabhupada highlights. Due to his impatience, Arjuna was unable to stand on the battlefield. He was forgetting himself on account of the weakness of his mind. That is Dhammativa Chame Mana. Our mana is always in Dhamma. It is always under the spell of the illusionary energy. So because of that, the mind is always weak. And what does the weakness of mind mean? We know what is the weakness of heart. Weakness of heart is our attachment. And weakness of mind is our forgetfulness of Krishna. He was forgetting himself. What is the self? Krishna says, Mame Vahansho Jivaloke. The self is the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. But because of our mind being instigated by fear and the weakness of the mind, we forget our eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. Excessive attachment for material things, Prabhupada says, that excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence. Bhayam dvitiya abhivinneshwasa bhatyasya. Such fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium takes place in persons who are too affected by material conditions. So to the extent one is very much in material existence, he will experience all these symptoms, such as fearfulness, loss of mental equilibrium, weakness of mind, impatience, and in situations of life, it will be very much influenced and impacted. That is why we have so many heart problems. And from the heart problem, now what we have the mind problems. What is the problem of mind? Depression, anxiety. They were not there. You see, the human history last place only 100 years back. Such a disease did not exist, or there were very few in number. But now it has become most prominent. Depression. What is depression? It is the weakness of the mind. So Arjuna envisioned only painful reverses in the battlefield. He would not be happy even by gaining victory over the foe. Whom is the enemy? So this is what is the weakness of the mind. What is the weakness of the mind? What is actually good for us, for the self, the internal self? The mind says, I will not do. So what is the mind speaking? When the mind is speaking, Arjuna envisioned only painful reverses. So the mind will always speak. This is what the mind speaks. It does not allow anyone else to speak. It does not allow us to hear anyone else. So this is what the mind does. What is actually beneficial for us, it will not allow us to accept. So Arjuna envisioned only painful reverses in the battlefield. He would not be happy even by gaining victory over the foe. This is what the mind is saying. That if I win, if I kill my enemies, I will not be happy. I will be worse. The words nimittani vipritani are significant. When a man sees only frustration in his expectation, he thinks, why I am here? Everyone is interested in himself and his own welfare. No one is interested in the supreme self. Now Arjuna has become so self-centered. He has become so obsessed. He has become so overwhelmed by his own thoughts, by his own ideas, by his own conceptions, that he is not even thinking that what is the purpose that he is here on the battlefield to fight. He is completely ignoring or neglecting the supreme interest of the Supreme Lord. He is not even considering that for this dharma yuddha, for this fight for the religious principles, the Supreme Lord has accepted a position of becoming a challenger. But he is not thinking of Krishna's interest. He's not thinking of his duty. What is he thinking? He's only thinking of his own interest. And what is his interest? Is based on his body, based on his attachments. So Prabhupada says no one is interested in the Supreme Self. Arjuna is showing ignorance of his real self-interest by Krishna's will. So this is the second role which Arjuna is playing. What is the role of a bewildered jiva? Was completely confused, perplexed. And how he is in this position? Prabhupada says, by Krishna's will. Why? Because if Arjuna would not have become confused, bewildered, then how would there have been the possibility of Krishna to speak Bhagavad Gita, the greatest treasure and the gift for the human race for all times to come? One's real self-interest lies in Vishnu or Krishna. The conditioned soul forgets this and therefore suffers material pains. So all this suffering is due to our forgetfulness of our eternal self, our eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. The conditioned soul forgets this and therefore suffers material pains. Arjuna thought this, that his victory in the battle would be the cause of lamentation. You see how his mind is so jacked. This is what the mind does. It creates a spell. Close this screen. Yeah, close this screen share. Like you see Arjuna, he is caught in the cobweb of his mind. And whatever the mind is dictating, Arjuna is able to see to the spectrum of his mind and is convinced. And in such a situation, what he is doing is actually harming himself. That is why Prabhupada is saying here. That one's real self-interest lies in Vishnu. This is what Prahlad Maharaj says. Nate vidu swat gatim hi Vishnu. Vidu means to know. And nate is one is not able to know or one is not able to realize. What? Swat gatim, at one's real interest. Swat gatim hi Vishnu. One's real interest in Vishnu. Why and how? Durashaya. Because he has taken false shelter. Or he has taken the shelter of his mind. Durashaya. Bahiyarthamana. And what is the mind? The mind is the agent of the illusionary energy. Bahiyarthamana. Whatever the illusory energy dictates, the mind reveals that. And such a person is andha. Bhagavatam calls such a person, he might be having eyes, but he has no vision or sight. Such a person is andha. Not only Dhritarashtra is andha, here we see even Arjuna has become andha. What is andha? One who has no vision of his spiritual interest. In Kali Yuga, everyone is andha. Surprisingly, we have glasses also, but still we are andha. Why? Because there is no spiritual vision. Andha yatha andha. And what this blind man is doing, he is following another blind man. Upagiyamana is following. Andha yatha andha. What will happen? If a blind man is following the blind man, where he will fall? He will fall in the ditch. Very important to us, and very, very important purpose for what I was saying. And we see how this phenomena works. That how material attachment, material compassion, it makes us become weak. Not only we are bodily weak, we are mentally weak. Weakness of the mind, it does not allow us to perform duty. What is actually good, what the mind interprets, it is bad for us. And what we do, we are obedient slaves of our mind. अंधा दान दियो ये जन्मे जन्मे गुरु से. What is that? Our mind. And we want to dedicatedly follow our mind. Arjuna is reflecting to this verses. What is the situation of a conditioned soul? How he is being harassed by his mind. And we will see Arjuna will give another reason, a more relatable reason for why he doesn't want to fight. That we will see from the next verses, from 31st verse onwards. We still have some time. If you have any question or discussion. Very
Hare
prominent.
Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. प्रभु जी, एक्चुअली माय क्वेश्चन इज दैट कि हम लोग जो फेयर में, जब हमारी लाइफ में कोई भी बहुत बड़ा फेयर आ जाता है या फिर बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम आ जाती है, तो हम लोग उस टाइम पे भगवान को क्यों मतलब बिलीव नहीं करते, प्रार्थना नहीं करते. उस टाइम पे हम नॉनसेंस चीजें करने लगते हैं कि भगवान को या तो ब्लेम करने लगते हैं या फिर कुछ और उल्टा सीधा कुछ करने लगते हैं या स्पेकुलेशन करने लगते हैं, पर भगवान पे बिलीव नहीं रहते. जबकि अर्जुन जी जब प्रॉब्लम में आए तो उन्होंने क्वेश्चन पूछे कृष्णा से, इच्छा जताई, क्वेश्चंस पूछे, और तो बिलीव था ना उनका. तो यही पूछना चाहता हूँ, क्वेश्चन इज दैट कि व्हाट इज द सीक्रेट ऑफ दिस बिलीव एवरी टाइम इन कृष्णा कॉन्शियसनेस. हरे कृष्णा.
नहीं, जो आपने लास्ट में पूछा वो उतना क्लियर नहीं है. व्हाट इज दी
क्वेश्चन ये है कि सीक्रेट क्या है डिवोटीज का कि वो हर टाइम कृष्णा को बिलीव करते हैं कृष्णा में, और हर टाइम कृष्णा को स्मरण करते रहते हैं.
सीक्रेट भक्तों का यह है क्योंकि वो कृष्ण का आश्रय लेते हैं. They do not take the shelter of their mind. Brahmativa me mana. Because the mind is going to bewilder. This material nature is a creation to bewilder. The modes are created to bewilder. So if we take shelter of Krishna, we can be free from bewilderment. आपने क्या कहा, जब मुसीबत आती है, डिफिकल्ट सिचुएशन आती है, तो हम क्या करते हैं, हम ब्लेम करने लगते हैं. तो क्या ब्लेम करने से मुसीबत टल जाती है, दूर हो जाती है, या हम मुसीबत में और फंस जाते हैं?
फंस जाते हैं प्रभु जी, और फंस जाते हैं.
मुसीबत आती इसलिए है ताकि हमें ये बताने के लिए कि हमें भगवान का आश्रय लेना. बीमारी किस लिए आती है? Why do we have diseases? Why do we get?
क्योंकि मिसबैलेंस हो जाता है बॉडी में.
When we are not doing what we should be doing, when our imbalance is there. So to have the proper balance of immunity, the diseases attack us. And as soon as we get the immunity back, the body is free from disease. But when the disease comes, one says that I will not accept the medicine. I will not observe the regulation. So what will happen? Will he recover? He will die.
प्रॉब्लम और बढ़ जाएगी.
He will, before dying, he will suffer more. So why it is there? Because as we can see from these verses, that due to attachment, we have weakness in the heart. That weakness leads to the weakness in the mind. It also impacts our intelligence. So what to do? We should be in the association of devotees. To the extent we are giving up the association of non-devotees, and we are in the association of devotees, we will always be happy. Even externally, they may look like suffering, but one will not suffer. I'm telling you from my personal experience and the experience of so many devotees. Outwardly, it may look like other situation, very difficult situation or a situation of suffering, but actually there is no suffering. Why? Because there is protection. And how this protection is coming? By taking shelter. Pandavas, they had no fear. How? Because they were always under the shelter of Krishna. And Duryodhana and his brothers, they had all the kingdom, they had all the power of the world. They were always, their heart was burning with fear. Any material possession or position cannot get us rid of fear. But to the extent we seek shelter of Krishna and his devotees, we can be free from fear. Why is one disturbed?
Prabhuji, because he has so many material desires.
Yes, he has big aspiration and he has frustration. This is what Prabhupada is speaking. And what in the frustration he does? He wants to quit. He wants to give up. He has high aspiration, and when he is subjected to reality, what is the situation? He faces failure. And when he faces failure, he is not able to accept it. What he wants to do? He wants to quit. That is why people commit suicide. Or they go in depression. This is what Arjuna is showing. Vipritan. Nimittani cha pashyami vipritan kesava. I am seeing all reverses. What is the biggest reverse in life? That we have forgotten Krishna and our relationship with Krishna. And what is that for us to do? Is to revive. Nothing else. Everything else is a farce. It is the imposition of the illusionary energy. But how can one see that? Only when he has someone who can show. So how not to be misguided is to remain in association. Sat Sangad Mukta Dhruva Sangho. How can one say one is in association when he has given up bad or non-devotee association? Then he is actually in good association. To the extent he is not, that is what we see. Who can progress in spiritual life and why others fail to progress? For 10 years, 20 years, they are struggling at the same platform. Why? Because they are not able to give up the non-devotee association. Then one cannot progress. Like there are weeds and there are seeds. If you water the seed, but you also water the weed, what will happen? If you are watering the weed, the seed cannot grow to its full capacity. The weeds will grow.
Yes, Prabhuji. But we are in college-like student, so there are so many non-devotees
So what?
environment.
So you remain there and you remain aloof. Why you have to align your heart with them?
So you are saying right.
You know, when they are non-devotees, they are not following the religious principles, they are not following the regulative principle, they are living a life of animal propensities. Why you have to attach importance to their association? know one concept NTV. Need to know. That's it.
Okay.
Only associate to the extent which is barely required, minimum required.
जी प्रभु।
Prabhupada went to the West. Whose association did he get? Were there any devotees? Were there any saintly person in Bauri?
No, no, no प्रभु।
None. None. Not even one. That was his spirit. We cannot do that. So what we should do? We should remain detached from them. And how we can remain detached from them? To the extent we are attached to devotees. To the extent we have failed to have our affection and attachment to devotees, we will remain attached to non-devotees. To the extent we are attached to non-devotees, struggle will be there. Now we will see good as bad and bad as good. Then this is what we will do. And there will be little change. There will be little reverses. What does? He falls. He fails.
जी प्रभु जी। थैंक यू। हरे
So
कृष्ण।
Arjuna, we are learning this lesson. That attachment on the bodily platform will make us only weak. And very important is the weakness of mind. And that is what Prabhupada is saying. The verse is quoting that the verse of Yasyasti Bhakti Bhagavati Akinchana. Sarve gunas tatra samasate sura. That one with unflinching devotion to the personality of Godhead has all the good qualities. But one who is hovering on the mental plane, Manora plane of Bhakti, how can he have any good quality? To the extent we are coming in association, we will cultivate these good qualities. How these good qualities are cultivated? To the extent we are aligning our heart with Krishna. And we will come in the sixth chapter. Krishna will give the example of a lotus leaf. Like the lotus leaf, it always is inside water, but it is untouched by water.
यस प्रभु जी।
I know so many devotees, some of the devotees are here. They exhibit this quality. They don't attach importance to who is around or where are they. They are more focused in their service, in their sadhana, in their duties. So if you are focused in that, then how can you have a satsang? We can only have a satsang because we are not having satsang or we are not taking advantage of satsang. Then asat is there. Material nature is all asat. To the extent we are taking shelter of sat, we can be free from asat. Okay.
जी प्रभु जी। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna. Arjuna is giving the first reason why he does not want to fight. So we see in this material world, the compassion people show, I care for you, I love you. But what can you do for me? Then they will be tested. When the time of sacrifice will come, and the real nature will be exposed. Yes, Jolamani Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. What is the difference between spiritual compassion, Prabhuji, and material compassion? Whether we should have both the compassion or one should have only spiritual compassion, Prabhuji?
See, very simple. Material compassion means which is based on body and mind. like Arjuna. So in normal course of life, what is family life? What it is based on? Body. It is based on blood. It is based on skin. It is all temporary. That is material compassion. And spiritual compassion means it is based on our relationship with Krishna. That we are eternal soul and all other living entities are also soul. They are also part and parcel of Krishna. To the extent we are reviving our relationship with Krishna or we are helping others to revive their relationship with Krishna, that is spiritual compassion. Compassion actually means only spiritual. Otherwise, you know what is passion? Passion means excessive desire to enjoy. And what is material compassion? That you lower some of your desire. And you want to allow others to fulfill their desire. Actually, compassion is only spiritual. And one wants to elevate himself and he wants to help other elevate. To connect with Krishna. What is material compassion? Material compassion only leads to suffering and fear. That is what we are seeing. What is the point in material compassion? Don't misunderstand that compassion only means that we should have good feeling for others. That is one understanding of it. The actual compassion is to uplift the soul from a suffering situation. Why is the soul suffering? Because one has forgotten his relationship with Krishna. But it's not serving Krishna. So real compassion is to engage the soul in service of Krishna. To the extent we are engaged in service, and to the extent we can engage others in service, we are showing spiritual compassion. That is what Prabhupada says. That our Krishna consciousness movement has been started specifically to broadcast this spiritual knowledge. Why? Because so that people can become happy. Why they are suffering? Because of ignorance. So that we create some qualified men, Brahmanas, who can give guidance to others. That is compassion. That is compassion. That is why Prabhupada at the age of 70 took such a risk. He went to hinterland, unknown place for him, no one known. But still he took such a bold step. Why? Because in his heart there was a burning desire to help others. Fulfill the desire of his spiritual master. Fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya and Krishna. One can only show compassion when he is actually doing justice to his own life. Janma sarthak kari kar par upkar. If he is not doing janma sarthak, then how can he do paropkar? If he himself is not following, how can he do good to others? If he is not able to do good to himself, what good can he do to others? That is again andha yatha andha ukti yava. The blind man is following the blind. Compassion only means one is connecting oneself and helping others to connect with Krishna. Because actual welfare is what? It's Krishna. That is what Prabhupada is saying. The real interest is in Krishna. Krishna. So how can we show compassion? Yeah, I'm asking you.
Yes, Prabhuji. I'm not able to hear you properly, Prabhuji.
Can you show compassion? How can we exhibit compassion?
Prabhuji, as you told that, first of all, we have to be, thorough with the whatever message the Lord is giving, and we have to first.
Very simple, don't speculate. We have to accept this knowledge and become an instrument to distribute this knowledge. Simple. What else can we do? What more can we do? To the extent we are situated in this knowledge, we accept this knowledge, we apply this knowledge, and we distribute it. That is what Krishna says. There is no one who is more dear to me. Why? Because he is distributing this Param Bhumi Jnana.
Prabhuji, as you told that, first of all, one should be Janma Sarthaka Kari Para Upakar. If one is not able to do his accepting the knowledge and he is not applying this knowledge, how can we do the Para Upakar? That part is very significant, Prabhuji. Most of all, we take in a wrong way. We think that material help is the real help. We think in that way. But as you told that, first of all, we have to accept the knowledge and what the principles, and then only we can do the Paropakar. That is possible.
Like something like you have studied math in class 2. Can you not help someone study math in class 1? You have to become an expert in math to be able to help someone who is in class 1? You have to become PhD? Yeah. What you know, what you have applied, you can share and you can help others. Principle is that it should not be that we are hypocrite or we are duplicitous. But we only speak but we don't apply, but we don't accept from the heart. Then it is a disservice. It will not work. And you see what our political leaders do. They speak and preach something else, but what they practice is something else. That is not Uppar. That is Upadrav. They are creating havoc in society. To the extent we are sincerely attempting to apply and we are practicing the path, we are being helped and we can help others. That is what is Jan Sarthakari Kartarutta. And that is the duty of all of us. Bharat Bhumita Manush Janma Hoile Jat. So who can say those who are all amongst us? We are all in this human form of life, Manush Janma Jat. And where we have been fortunate to receive the birth in Bharat Bhumi. Then Janma Sarthaka. First duty is to do Janma Sarthaka. And also Kar Pariyutta. That is real compassion. Janma Sarthaka and Pariyutta. But what is the biggest impediment in not being able to do Janma Sarthak and Parupkar that we will see from Arjuna? Arjuna is honest. He will speak his heart. He will not cover his heart. Like today, with some devotee, I had some misunderstanding. And today we sat. And he spoke his heart. He told me the truth clearly. Yes, this is the situation. And because he was speaking the truth, so immediately it was reconciled. No problem. But you see, among two materialistic people, they're very difficult to have reconciliation. Why? Because they will not accept what is the truth. They will always cover it. They will always speak which is untruth. So the heart will not connect and will not get pacified. We'll see in the next verse. The 31st verse. Arjuna will speak. What is the reason? That why he is not able to fight? He will give another very prominent reason, the most prominent reason. That why we are not able to perform our duty? Why we shy away from our duty? Okay, it is already past 9. Thank you very much. Most of our regular devotees are there. Where is Yagnesh? Yagnesh Prabhu? Where are you? Okay. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Okay, so today is regular. Next week, most likely I'll be able to come campus. And tomorrow again, just yesterday, for that there is another occasion. Tomorrow we have Rath Yatra in our temple premises from 4:30 sharp till 7. There is one more Rath Yatra tomorrow. So those who are in Delhi NCR can come and join. And don't be late or lost like yesterday. If you become late, it's very difficult. Thank you very much. And please meditate on Lord Jagannath. And Lord Jagannath is on Rath. Why he comes on the Ratha? Because we have become all Rathi. We are captivated by our own Ratha, which is our mind. It comes on the Ratha to give his darshan to cleanse our mind. Thank you very much. भगवद गीता यथारूप की जाए, प्रभुपाद की जाए, उपस्थित सभी भक्तजन की जाए. दिनेश जी, can I expect you at least tomorrow?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll be there.
What time? 5:30, 6:30?
Whatever time you say, Prabhuji,
Whatever time I say, the time that Jagannath has decided is 4:30.
I'll be there.
Hare Krishna.